Even with everything else going on, the news that Usher actually took the stand in the Sean Diddy Combs trial was a genuine head-turner. It felt like it came out of nowhere.
It really did. And what makes it so compelling is that it's direct firsthand perspective, on a relationship that was so key in his early years as an artist. It just instantly makes you rethink everything we thought we knew about the whole mentorship.
Exactly. And that's precisely what we're digging into today. We've managed to get hold of the reporting on Usher's testimony in federal court, specifically from Inner City Press. And there's a pretty revealing YouTube clip doing the rounds, too. Our goal here isn't just to, list what he said. We want to really try and understand the environment Usher described under Diddy, the key things that came out in his account, and maybe what the lasting impact of all that might be for him, and maybe for the wider music world, too.
Yeah, trying to get past the headlines and into the substance.
Right. We're trying to get to the core of what this testimony actually reveals.
And it's crucial to remember this isn't just, someone telling stories after the fact. This is sworn testimony. In a federal courtroom, that just carries a different kind of weight, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Okay, so let's start at the beginning then. Usher talks about being 14. His first album was just out. And the excitement when his mother told him he was going to live with Diddy in New York.
Wow, 14.
Yeah. And this was apparently set up by L.A. Reid, with the clear idea that being around Diddy would be this, amazing boost for his career. It sounds like the kind of thing any young artist would absolutely jump at.
Oh, for sure. It fits that classic narrative, right? The rising star taken under the wing of an established, powerful figure. You'd naturally assume the mentorship would be about, music, the business, building a career.
But that initial dream, it seems like it crashed into reality pretty fast. Usher talks about walking into Diddy's penthouse in Midtown Manhattan and just being immediately hit by this scene, I think he called it.
The scene, yeah.
He mentioned champagne at breakfast, a constant stream of strangers, people he recognized from showbiz just kind of hanging around, sometimes not fully dressed or even passed out. He said it wasn't a home. It was this chaotic place he called Flavor Camp.
Flavor Camp.
And at 14, he genuinely thought, okay, this is just some kind of cool branding thing.
That term itself, flavor camp, while maybe sounding like branding, it kind of hints at something deeper, doesn't it? Like blurring those lines between professional and personal to, maybe exert control or normalize things that aren't really normal.
Yeah, like breaking down boundaries.
Exactly. It makes it harder for someone young to even recognize if something's wrong. The difference between what he expected, music lessons, guidance, and the reality of just excess, it's pretty stark right from the start.
And the actual mentorship. Well, it wasn't exactly about scales and songwriting, was it? Instead of, vocal coaching or stage presence tips, Usher says Diddy's advice was more about soaking up the lifestyle, partying with important people, and crucially, not asking questions. Diddy apparently told him things like, this is how we do it. You don't question, you just observe.
Learn by watching.
Yeah. That's how grown men operate. It's a very specific kind of education, isn't it? Almost passive.
It's definitely a kind of education that seems more about fitting into a certain culture, a power structure, than actually learning a craft. That whole just watch, don't ask thing. It's less about learning and more about setting up a hierarchy, right? Discouraging any critical thinking about what's going on, especially from the young guy.
Okay, but here's where it gets distinctly unsettling. Usher describes waking up middle of the night, maybe 3 a.m., and seeing people in masks coming into the apartment. He mentions low music, candles, a very specific, almost ritualistic vibe.
Ritualistic.
He walked into the living room, saw what he called a ritualistic party. And what really stands out is he emphasizes the structure he noticed, cameras, lists, and the fact that nobody else seemed surprised at all.
Like this was normal for them.
Yeah. He said it felt like walking onto a movie set. And he was basically just told, go back to bed.
Gosh. The level of detail there, the masks, that time of night, the feeling that it was structured but everyone else was just okay with it, it paints a really disturbing picture, doesn't it?
It really does.
Suggests something hidden, something deliberately kept from outsiders, operating right there in Diddy's inner circle. And Usher feeling like it was a movie set just highlights how unreal, maybe even staged it all felt.
And for Usher, this was clearly a massive turning point. He testified that this specific moment fundamentally changed how he saw Diddy. Forever.
I can only imagine.
Being 14, seeing something like that in the home of the person who's supposed to be guiding you. Yeah, it's hard to wrap your head around.
It must have just shattered any illusions he had, right? about Diddy, about the world he was stepping into. It introduces this element of the bizarre, maybe even something illicit, into what was supposed to be a professional, nurturing relationship.
What's also really telling is Usher saying he got 0 warnings, nothing, says his mom. The label. Nobody in the industry seemed to clue him in on what Diddy's world was actually like. Even though he kind of implies people knew, he suggests people just saw Diddy as, eccentric.
Ah, the eccentric label.
Right, but they missed the quiet but absolute power he apparently held.
That speaks volumes, doesn't it? About a potential culture of, well, looking the other way. Maybe fear, maybe the benefits of being linked to Diddy led to this sort of collective silence. Calling it eccentric just downplays the potential harm, lets it continue, and leaves young artists totally exposed.
He even talks about what happened to people who got on Diddy's bad side, stalled careers, basically. That was the main threat. Yeah. And for those he liked, there was this unspoken deal. Keep quiet.
Yeah.
It paints a picture of this very tightly controlled world where speaking out could cost you big time.
It definitely reinforces that idea of a hierarchy built on loyalty, right? Enforced by both rewards and punishments. That unspoken threat of your career just hitting a wall, that's a powerful way to keep people in line and maintain secrecy.
And Usher makes this really powerful point, saying other young artists were brought into the same situation, lured by fame, but slowly pulled into Diddy's world in ways they didn't really get at the time. He doesn't name names here, but he hints others might speak up, and he says, pretty bluntly, the adults failed us.
That's a heavy statement. And it points beyond just Diddy, doesn't it? It puts responsibility on the whole network management, labels, other powerful people who might have seen things but didn't step in. It suggests a systemic failure to protect these kids.
Then Usher talks about this particularly uncomfortable trip to the Caribbean. He was 15.
Okay.
He says it was framed as a retreat, just him, Diddy, a couple of others, very isolated place. And it was there, he says, he realized this had nothing to do with music. He actually said, and this is from the reporting, I wasn't given a choice about the environment I was placed in, and it took me years to understand the manipulation.
Wow. That trip sounds like a really crucial moment where any pretense of it being purely professional just dissolved. The isolation, his own words about having no choice, realizing it was manipulation, that points to a massive breach of trust and potential exploitation, especially of a minor.
He testifies that after that trip, Diddy's behavior changed. He got more controlling, the parties were nonstop, there were more rules, and these really chilling reminders started.
Like what?
Things like, you don't bite the hand that feeds you. Remember who gave you this life. And Usher's reply in court. Stark. Powerful, he said. You didn't give me this life. You gave me nightmares.
Whoa! That is incredibly direct. Just cuts right through everything. It sums up that shift, the lasting damage. It's a total rejection of that whole be grateful narrative and just a raw statement about the trauma.
So then at 16, Usher gets presented with a contract. And buried in it, apparently, was a confidentiality clause, made to look like a standard NDA for Bad Boy's internal stuff. Yeah. He admits he didn't get the legal jargon his mom had to co-sign. The label lawyer said it was routine. But looking back, he sees it as a contract to keep me quiet.
Yeah, hiding clauses like that in standard paperwork. It's a known tactic, unfortunately, especially with young people or anyone without good legal advice. Being a minor, relying on his mom, the label reps, he was really vulnerable to signing something without grasping the full consequences down the line.
He says that signature basically bought his silence for years.
Yeah.
He felt like he couldn't talk about the parties, about how certain guests behaved, all supposedly to protect the brand.
Right.
But he asked pointedly, what about what it did to me?
Exactly. The focus of those NDAs is almost always on protecting the powerful party's reputation, their interests. It totally ignores the personal costs, silencing people's real experiences, especially if those experiences involve alleged harm or wrongdoing.
He then describes how this very NDA came back up in 2009. He was thinking about talking to a major magazine or newspaper, got calls from bad boy lawyers, reminding him about the NDA, subtly hinting it could damage his own rep if he went public. So he backed off the interview. But it wasn't just lawyers. He alleges he got these veiled threats from people still connected to Diddy years later. Stuff like, you think you're done with that world, but it's never done with you. And hints about consequences, not just for his career, but maybe even his safety if he stepped out of line.
That level of alleged intimidation, it just shows the lengths some people might go to control information, to squash potential whistleblowers. The idea that this influence could stretch years after he'd supposedly moved on, It speaks to a really deep-seated culture of control and, frankly, fear.
Usher even brought a copy of the NDA to court, and he pointed out specific language about audiovisual documentation and unauthorized copying, which, sounds particularly disturbing given all the later allegations about Diddy's supposed freak-off video library. Usher said seeing that document again made him feel like everything I saw, everything I felt, wasn't real because I wasn't allowed to say it out loud. He felt completely gaslighted. Understandably.
Yeah, having that specific language in there, especially with those later allegations floating around, it's really concerning. And feeling gaslighted. That's such a common response when your reality is denied by someone in power. The NDA becomes more than just paper. It's a tool for psychological manipulation.
Usher then mentioned another incident, maybe less talked about before, a party in Atlanta, 1996. He was 17.
Okay.
He describes this mix of people, celebs, models, but also these mysterious men who didn't seem to fit the music scene. But the really weird detail, a secret room.
A secret room?
Yeah. He says he saw Diddy quietly tell a security guard to unlock a door, and then Diddy said to Usher, "You're not ready for that yet." Usher said he got just a quick glimpse inside. Saw people in masks. That's all he said about it.
Wow. Masks again? Secret rooms? It just screams secrecy, maybe illicit stuff going on. And Diddy saying Usher wasn't ready. That implies Diddy knew whatever was happening in there was disturbing.
Usher confessed that night changed him. Said he saw things he still can't explain, just knew in his gut it wasn't right. Then he shared parts of his journals from '99 and 2000.
Actual journal entries.
Yeah. One mentioned a dinner where loyalty was prized over honesty. Another from 2000 just said, "Too many secrets, too many masks." He admitted he was terrified to tell anyone back then.
Gosh, those journal entries give you such a raw look at what he was going through internally, right? The success on the outside, but this private turmoil and unease he's writing about, you can feel it. And his fear of sharing it just highlights the kind of atmosphere he must have been living in.
Then Usher described this meeting in 1997. He was 18. Diddy sets up this meeting with a powerful music investor in Miami. Big opportunity, supposedly. But Usher gets to the penthouse suite, finds 3 guys in robes, champagne, young women kind of the background. And the investor asks in this really disturbing question, not about music, but if I wanted to be remembered forever.
Whoa, that is deeply unsettling.
Then Diddy apparently just leaves him there, alone with these men.
That whole scenario, it just raises huge red flags about what kind of opportunities were being offered and the potential for exploitation hidden just beneath the surface. That vague, loaded question from the investor, Diddy leaving him. It's incredibly uncomfortable.
Usher said he felt trapped, totally creeped out. One of the men apparently put a hand on his shoulder, said something like, "You can stay or you can leave, but you'll never get another invitation like this again."
A veiled threat.
He chose to leave, and he claims the fallout was instant. Pulled from a tour he was scheduled for, a big producer suddenly stopped working with him. Nobody directly said, "It's because you left that Miami meeting," but the timing, well, it's pretty clear.
Yeah, that immediate negative impact after leaving that situation, it strongly suggests a system of control, of retaliation, that unspoken link between him walking away from something uncomfortable and losing professional opportunities. It just highlights the power dynamics and the potential cost of saying no, or even just leaving.
And then, even more disturbing, Usher testified that later Diddy actually showed him a video of another young artist being coerced into doing something they clearly didn't want to do.
No.
And Diddy apparently laughed while showing it. When the lawyer asked if Diddy had directly threatened him, Usher said he didn't have to. The people around him did. They didn't use words. They used silence and exile. That, Usher said, was when he realized fame in Diddy's world wasn't about talent. It was about submission.
That is absolutely chilling. Using indirect coercion, using fear like that. Showing him that video, it's like a stark warning, reinforcing that compliance was the price he paid for success in that circle. And his conclusion, fame equals submission, that's profoundly disturbing.
Usher then shifted gears to talk about Justin Bieber. He talked about his own role in launching Bieber's career, how he genuinely wanted to be a positive mentor. But then Diddy got involved, started using that same phrase, flavor camp, with Bieber. And Bieber was only 15, but being treated like an adult. Usher recalled getting this concerning call from Bieber saying, "I want to come home."
Oh, man.
Then Bieber went quiet and later acted like everything was fine. But Usher felt like it clearly wasn't.
So Usher saw a pattern repeating itself, recognized it from his own experience, that flavor camp phrase coming back, seeing similar dynamics with another really young artist. It suggests a consistent method, maybe, in how Diddy interacted with people under his influence.
Usher says he actually confronted Diddy privately, asked him, "What are you doing to these kids?" And Diddy's alleged response, "Just chilling. Same thing they did to me. It's how the game works."
Wow. How the game works. That suggests, it suggests a potential cycle of abuse, normalizing exploitation within the industry, just framing it as the cost of doing business.
After that, Usher says he consciously pulled back, but felt he couldn't stay totally silent after seeing what happened with Bieber. He also mentioned getting an anonymous threat in 2018 to keep his mouth shut, and implied Diddy was behind it.
So Diddy's alleged response is basically an admission, framed as inevitability. And Usher deciding to step back but eventually speak out, even after getting a threat, that takes real courage.
Usher then described another incident, one not widely known before. A private party, Hollywood Hills, 2002. Described as a sort of rite of passage.
Okay.
Young artists, models, apparently told they were there for career opportunities. Usher got invited under what he says were false pretenses, supposed to meet some European producer. But when he got there, no execs. Just heavy security, intense secrecy, phones taken away, and NDAs that had, quote, more aggressive language.
That whole setup sounds incredibly controlled, potentially exploitative, masked as a career event, the fake invitation, the heavy security, the tougher NDAs. It strongly suggests the real purpose was something far from normal industry networking.
Usher said the vibe was wrong. He noticed people there he called observers, not artists, not execs, and he recognized some famous people who seemed totally unconnected to the scene. He wouldn't name them, but hinted they might come up in future testimony.
Observers. Interesting.
When he tried to leave early, he says he was stopped, taken to a side room, and Diddy allegedly told him, "You're not ready yet. You still think this is about music. This is bigger than that." Usher stated flat out. He never went to another Diddy party after that night.
That alleged statement from Diddy, "This is bigger than that," it's so revealing, isn't it? Suggests these parties had some other purpose, something maybe much darker than just socializing or business. And Usher cutting ties completely after that, it really underlines how deeply impactful whatever he saw or felt must have been.
The testimony then took a turn towards business dealings. Usher submitted emails, contract drafts, showing his deal as a teen. 5 albums. Lost his master recording rights until he was 35.
Oof. 5 albums and no masters till 35 is rough. Especially for a teenager signing?
He admitted, "I didn't know what I was signing." And he alleged similar exploitative contracts were handed out to other bad boy artists. Mentioned Carl Thomas, Total, Black Rob, Craig Mack. He suggested a pattern. Diddy promises mentorship, then in Usher's view, uses them up and discards them.
Yeah, those contract terms, the business practices, they raise serious questions about potential financial exploitation of young, inexperienced artists. Losing your masters for that long is a huge financial hit. And if it happened to multiple artists, it starts looking less like isolated bad deals and more like a potential systemic issue.
Usher even revealed he was once shown a spreadsheet. Showed $4.3 million in royalties owed to him that hadn't been paid.
$4.3 million.
Yeah. And Diddy's alleged response, "If you knew what was really owed to you, you wouldn't sleep at night."
Wow.
Just wow.
He also talked about other artists taking settlements quietly, sometimes just to get the rights to their own names or music back. He even tried to set up a secret meeting with other artists back in 2011 to discuss this, but it got shut down somehow.
And then a really dark allegation. Usher claims he witnessed Diddy ordering the destruction of demo tapes and footage of an artist who was threatening to speak out. And that artist subsequently just disappeared.
That is incredibly serious. If true, that points to deliberate efforts to control and silence people through financial games, intimidation, and potentially much worse. Destroying materials, an artist vanishing? That's deeply concerning. It raises questions about how far Diddy and his circle allegedly went to protect secrets.
Usher got pretty emotional on the stand when asked why he didn't say something sooner.
I can imagine.
He explained he felt this sense of, obligation to Diddy. And he'd convinced himself silence was the way to move on. But then he said, "But you can't be grateful for a lie." He talked about years of guilt, the pain of seeing others potentially go through the same thing.
That emotional response really hits home, doesn't it? Shows the deep psychological scars, that internal conflict he must have lived with, feeling indebted to someone who allegedly harmed you. It's a complex dynamic. His hesitation makes sense when you consider the power Diddy allegedly had, the fear of what might happen.
He mentioned the power imbalance, Diddy's influence, trying and failing to confront Diddy about that Drink Champs interview back in 2016. And he shared this deeply personal journal entry, unpublished, from when he finally left Diddy's mentorship.
What did it say?
I survived Puffy, but did the kid in me survive? I still don't know.
Gosh, that's heavy.
His reason for testifying now, he says, isn't for himself. It's for those he believes didn't survive similar things, and for the next generation of artists. He sees this whole case as a reckoning for decades of silence.
That journal entry is just so poignant. It questions his very identity, his well-being, and deciding to testify now out of responsibility for others, that's a powerful motivation. Trying to break a cycle, maybe open the door for more accountability.
And then came this bombshell revelation, something totally undisclosed before. Back in 2001, peak of his early fame, Usher quietly checked himself into a private mental health facility, Northern California, for a week. Use a fake name.
Really? 2001?
Yeah. Publicly, everyone thought he was just taking a break from touring, but he revealed it was actually because he had a breakdown, stemming from the unresolved trauma of his time with Diddy.
Wow. That puts everything in a different light.
He described having panic attacks,
Yeah.
triggered by sensory things, certain lights, big crowds, types of music, even the smell of specific candles. Recalled an incident in a New York hotel.
That gives such crucial insight into the long-term psychological fallout he was allegedly dealing with. Seeking help at that huge moment in his career just underscores how severe the trauma must have been. Those sensory triggers, classic symptoms of post-traumatic stress.
He told a psychiatrist back then about seeing things no kid should see, living in a world where power meant silence and survival meant smiling through it. He described Diddy's house vividly as a place where dreams were sold, but your soul was the price.
Your soul was the price. That's haunting.
He got diagnosed with PTSD, went through years of therapy. He also said he knew other young artists had similar experiences. Some just disappeared, others had breakdowns, but they were too scared to speak. Mentioned tragic outcomes, overdose, suicide attempts, vanishing.
His detailed account of his own mental health battle really highlights the profound, lasting damage this kind of alleged exploitation and trauma can cause. And knowing others suffered similarly but stayed silent, it points to how systemic this might have been and the devastating personal cost.
Usher's final words on why he stayed silent so long.
Yeah.
They really resonate. He said, because nobody would have believed me in 2001. Puffy was untouchable and I was just the kid with the voice. But now the world is ready to listen. He implies there was this hidden silent war going on beneath all the success, and him finally speaking out now feels incredibly significant.
That statement just perfectly captures the power dynamics, doesn't it? And maybe a shift in, society that allows these stories suppressed for so long to finally come out. His courage now, after all those years of alleged fear and silence, it carries immense weight.
Usher's testimony is, without a doubt, deeply impactful, profoundly disturbing, really, especially when you put that carefully built public image next to the alleged reality he painted so vividly.
Absolutely. And I think for you, the listener, the key things to take away are that alleged pervasive culture of silence around Diddy, the potential exploitation of young artists when they were most vulnerable, and the very real, long-lasting psychological toll these alleged experiences took on Usher himself.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, maybe something to think about is this. What are the bigger implications here? For the music industry, the whole entertainment world, how many other stories like this might still be out there buried under NDAs and fame? And what's the responsibility of the industry, and maybe even us, the public, in creating a safer, more ethical place for young artists who are just trying to chase their dreams? It definitely gives you a lot to mull over.